Hi, everybody. Welcome to another webinar from Apposite. I hope everybody is able to hear me and see us. Great, great. Thank you so much. Okay, let me start sharing my screen.
Echo.
There's an echo.
Charlie, are you hearing an echo?
I'm hearing it from your end, Bob. I don't hear it when Viṣak speaks. You want to try something again?
To leave
Yeah.
and come back in. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Now it's gone.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, great. So I have everybody here. Once again, thank you so much for joining us in this webinar. I hope everybody can see my screen that I'm sharing. Great. Okay. So, great. Today we are here to talk about, yet again, the evolution of corporate learning. We are talking a lot about this, and there is a lot of significance to it. We are going through a huge phase of transformation. We are seeing a lot of trends, a lot of tools, a lot of anecdotes and stories from around the world of really cool solutions and strategies that people are putting together using these tools. So it's a very exciting time, and I don't think we can get enough of talking about why this is an important time and how significant it is for us to understand our way forward in this whole phase. So without further ado, we are going to be talking about specifically how AI is impacting the way we are looking at learning and training solutions, and generally how the workforce of today is kind of adapting to these skills and what kind of strategies are required for them to move forward. So let me go to the next slide here. Let me do some introductions. I have some very eminent stalwarts of industry, as I would call them, join us over here for this webinar. I have a very long-term acquaintance, a friend of mine, Charlie over here. Charlie, it's been what, like almost 10 years now since we have known each other. And Charlie has been, I've seen Charlie through so many different teams and, learning organizations that have worked on some amazing strategies, created some amazing solutions for large, workforces around the world. Charlie, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Viṣak. I can't believe we've known each other that long, but the years definitely do fly by. But hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Forty. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I started teaching back in 2000, and that's when technology really started to change the learning landscape. And I was very passionate about it. But back in 2000, that meant the internet, that meant PowerPoint, that meant a screen projector, and so forth. So I really do feel that that was a huge evolution in how people were starting to learn. And now we're at another inflection point, and I'm super excited about that. I've spent the last 20 years navigating the universe of corporate learning after I left the teaching world, focusing on corporate training, talent development, and learning innovation, and just really trying to find foundational programs to help Fortune 500 companies just really scale up their organization. Currently, I'm the founder of 40 & Co Talent Solutions, where we create learning that's scalable and meaningful for our clients. And Viṣak, believe it or not, I've known Bob Britton even longer than I've known you. So Bob, we're, I think, at 15 plus years knowing each other. So excited
There,
to, yeah, excited to bring you on board for this too.
Thanks, Charlie. Yes, wow, that's amazing. 15 years. Bob is another mammoth figure over here when it comes to sales enablement and strategies. He's the co-founder, he's the founder and CEO of Revenue Generation Strategies company, and he's joining us from Dallas. I've had the pleasure of knowing Bob for, I think, since last year, and been cooking up some very interesting solutions specifically in the sales enablement domain. But, Bob, I'd like to hear some, and we all would like to hear a bit about yourself.
Thanks. Yeah, I have some miles under my belt, a few more gray hairs than I should have. So yeah, I've been in the L&D space for off and on for quite a while. I actually got started in it back in the Navy, of all places. Who, as many people might know, was the genesis of remote learning. They were the ones that actually got it all started. So yeah, that's where I got started with that. And today, as you said, I run RGS. It's my company right here. And what I do is I help companies mainly look for ways to improve the way that they're generating revenue. And a lot of the time, people don't look at L&D as, very impactful, but it really is. One of the things that I did, I'm also a founding member of the Sales Enablement Society, one of the original 100 that actually pulled it all together. And so we really took a look at how to use sales enablement as a tool to improve the company itself. It was like a business within a business is what we tried to make it. So that'll probably come up a few times here when we're talking today.
Glad to have you here, Bob. So actually, Bob and Charlie and we are actually working on something very interesting, putting together a very impactful sales enablement program, I think, and I think we are really on the cusp of something really big over here. So I thought I'd invite these two gentlemen here to kind of talk about some of the changes that we are seeing and how we are moving forward. What would be the best path forward from here? So my name is Viṣak. I'm an instructional designer, primarily playing the role of a pre-sales consultant at Apposite, and working with clients and various organizations to kind of understand their challenges and provide appropriate solutions. Also kind of trying to understand the whole evolution of learning as such, and seeing as there's so much of change around us, what's the best way forward, how we as learning professionals and professionals in any domain, how do we kind of adapt to this change and make sure that it works for us, right? So that's what this whole webinar is about. Let's start with a little bit into what we are going to talk about in probably the next 45 minutes. So we are definitely going to talk about how AI is driving that change across the entire domain of learning and development, how what worked till now, or probably what didn't work till now, even that, all of that would have to change, and we'd probably have to move into an entirely different way of working with these technologies, tools, and trying to understand how it's going to change our lives. So it's a huge change, and how that's going to impact is something that we need to be very aware of. We need to constantly keep ourselves abreast of it. We are also going to kind of point out some very interesting statistics, some data points around what's currently happening in the world out there with respect to AI and the implementation of AI, the use of the various tools and technologies to not just kind of bring in efficiencies, but I guess we'll also be talking about how it's helping us to think more critically and making sure that we see the larger picture, the vision, before we delve into the specifics of how we use AI and such. We will also end the session with some practical insights and steps to take in how to navigate this whole transformation, this whole new paradigm of working with these tools, AI tools. So that's something that we'd be sharing with you. I think so. Let me get into statistics over here. This is some data points that we had put together from a lot of research that we did. A lot of companies, a lot of organizations have released some very interesting research, insights and findings, and this kind of gives a rough idea of what we are seeing in the world out there. 72% of organizations today are integrating AI into at least one business function. I mean, that's huge. It's like, we are seeing a tremendous change right now. That is probably something that we need to, I guess Charlie can probably talk about this, right, Charlie? Why maybe this change might be a danger for us, like, how we navigating it. So yeah, any insights into these numbers, like, what do they look like for you?
When I take a look at these, and I think I'd mentioned before, I think it paints a pretty rosy picture, right? AI has been around for a while. We all know the term AI. We've seen it in movies for decades. And this makes it seem like a lot of folks are using it, right? And I think they are, but they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily know how to use it, right? So isn't new. AI in its current format is AI as it's going to appear tomorrow is something that we're not sure about either, right? And so when we take a look at things like Duolingo, we take a look at Spotify, they're using AI to really personalize those experiences for us, which I think is great. So how do we, as an organization, get to that point, right? And so I think that 72% probably are using AI. Out of that 72%, I'm curious how many of them feel comfortable or confident in what they're doing.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember is that 63.7% of all statistics are inaccurate. So, okay. so we had to take all of these with a grain of salt and really put it into reality here. People are always going to be pushing AI because it's the latest, hottest thing, and it's fantastic. There's a lot of great innovation coming out of it. But the important thing is not to become, not to buy into it so much that you become dependent upon it. Use it as a tool, right? And we'll explore that as we go along here. And one other quick thing is that, we'd like to throw around the word transformation quite a bit when it comes to AI. Transformation in the real world is a caterpillar become a butterfly. It's something entirely different. This is not entirely different. AI is here to help us evolve faster is what it is. So we're not doing something that's going to be so different that we need to relearn everything that we've ever done. This will help us augment and amplify what it is we already do. So just keep that in mind as we go through looking at the impact of AI and L&D.
That's a very good point, Bob. Thank you so much for bringing that. In fact, we will be talking about it sometime later as to why there's a huge fear that AI is going to replace us, or a lot of jobs are going to be taken away by AI. But that's not the case. I think we are looking at something where there's technology that's here to help us, and as Bob rightly mentioned, it's augmenting our skills, right? So I think we need to look at it that way. So yes. Numbers apart, there are certain things that we need to look at in terms of what we are moving away from, right? Because from a learning and development standpoint, what have we been doing right till now? We have been creating some content. We have been putting it out there, hoping that there a large base of learners would actually be kind of using that learning. Praying would be a better way over here, but that's not the case. And now it's becoming all the more apparent with artificial intelligence coming in, and it's making it so easy to create learning experiences that are fine-tuned to a certain set of learners, and we're able to collect that information also as to what makes a learner tick and in what way they need to be kind of guided through a certain learning experience. So those earlier challenges that we face, I think those are going to change now. And probably one thing that we need to keep in mind is learners are very different. We are living in a world where neurodiversity is really taken very seriously. So it's important that we consider that, how learners learn, and we make sure that experiences are also created in that way. This is,
When I
yeah,
when I see this slide here, I kind of I don't know why, but I think of broadcast television, right? And I'm not sure about the age group on here, but I still remember a time when there were, 4 channels that you could select from, and it just catered to the masses. And if you think about how we consume, television today, it's very, very different. Cable was the start of that, and now it's just been amplified to the nth degree with YouTube and all the different streaming channels and micro channels. You could watch Brady Bunch all day if you wanted, because there's a segment of the population that is interested in that now, right?
yeah.
Whereas before you couldn't have done that, and I really kind of see it. AI is bringing that same level of personalization where you don't have to have these one size fits all, like we did with television before.
Yeah, growing up, I was remote control. Dad would say, "Hey, Bobby, go change the channel." we didn't have a clicker or anything like that back in the day. So
It's voice activated now, Bob.
exactly. So it's interesting because I was that guy on the left that you're looking at. A lot of the times I'm just getting started, pulling your hair out. It gets easier as you go along, and the tools that come along really help us. Really help us create. But as far as the personalization is concerned, it's always been a problem in L&D, because you either aim to when you try to aim, you aim for the lowest common denominator. And so, some people you're overshooting some and you're undershooting others. And so there's always some sort of a problem there. But with AI now and being able to really customize what it is that we're doing, we can now provide something that really should help people advance quicker. I think you brought up a word there that I love, which is experience, and experiential learning, as compared to just simply sitting in front of a computer screen and looking. Right? There's three channels: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, that we all got to look at. And so if we can somehow get all 3 of those moving at the same time, it's a much richer environment and people learn much better.
True. And there are a lot of studies coming out that, neurodiversity is a spectrum, and, different people are on different scales over there. And there are, it's not learning styles, but there are certain preferences that, learners would show with these, things that the way they are on that spectrum, it would actually show up, in the way they would prefer to learn. So yeah, it's very important. And actually that works into how we are gonna see this whole learning ecosystem evolve, right? And you mentioned this, it's not a transformation, it's more like an evolution where we are moving forward from one previous state to something where we are better, more efficient, or more productive. And AI is helping us with that. We see these tools that, are really cutting down the time on, some of the tasks that we are doing, and helping us with some very intelligent, insights and additions that we can use to kind of make sure that we have all the data right before we move into some sort of a solution and such. So with the power of artificial intelligence, like you mentioned, I think we need to see those kind of platforms which would customize the learning solutions for different types of learners, and make sure that they collect the right data from learners, because that's very important, right? I mean, where are we if we don't have the right analytics to say that, okay, the learner is going in the right way, maybe they need more scaffolding or more support. So I think these are a couple of things, AI-powered adaptation, and the way in which we collect data from the solutions that we create. That's very important, right? Any comments?
And just kind of going back to the teaching days, but differentiated instruction is not a new concept, right? And it's something that we've always tried to incorporate into our learning design. It's just the complexity that it takes in order to be able to do that, trying to think about the various stages that they might be at. In person is a little bit easier because you could break them up in grooves based on interest, based on capabilities, based on all these different things. You might have 3 different ways to try to approach the same objectives. However, it was just so time consuming, right? And so that's where AI is really a game changer, because it's simplifying all of that, right? And now we're able to offer that personalization really, really easy.
True, true. I
Yeah.
remember. So go ahead, Pap.
No, I was just going to say that the interesting thing about AI is that if you use it correctly, I don't know how many people have actually taught in teams before, but when you're teaching as a team, you'll pick up on something when you're not teaching because you're focused on what it is you're trying to deliver, right? You're focused on the content, but the instructor that's sitting off to the side can watch the audience and say, okay, what are they doing? How are they reacting? AI can fill that seat as that other instructor and actually watch and see what's happening and make suggestions to the audience, can make suggestions to the instructor, pick up and add something here and there. So that's something that I think AI is really going to be great at, is being that that second instructor, the color commentator, if you will, to the instructions actually being given.
Yeah, yeah. Also, as somebody who can sit back and collect data from the sidelines, right? I mean, you have people today wearing so many devices like, smartwatches and other devices that have sensors that collect the required data. Imagine if we had a system that, and I don't have to imagine, I'm pretty sure somebody out there is creating it as we speak, but imagine getting that data and using that to kind of, personalize further. I think there is a word for it called hyper personalization, where they are using real-time learner analytics data that's collected to kind of shape the next learning experience or the next moment, and so keep them on that track. So it's very interesting.
The quickest way to lose a learner is to try to teach them what they already know, right?
Yeah,
And so being able to use that data to make it very, very relevant, to make it impactful for that individual. Once you start teaching stuff that people already know, they're going to lose their focus. They're going to start to think about lunch and dinner and all of that. When they're engaged, that's when they're focused and they enjoy learning and they learn without even realizing it.
Yeah. I think the way forward, and these are some trends as in that we have been seeing from learning and development teams across the world and organizations that are, kind of creating these kind of experiences for their workforces. We are seeing these things like personalized learning paths coming in, learning management systems actually taking note of, how to collect data and not just completion data of, what you did, how many screens you visited within a course, and more than that, behavioral data around, are they really getting it? Are they really seeing what we are trying to communicate here? So those, it's funny, I think we spoke about this some time back, where social media, I mean, we are really quick to go to our platforms like Insta or Facebook or X or for any of those. And the reason why we go there is because their algorithms are so crazily smart. They pick up on what you need and they make sure that they give you the right, hits at the right time. It's super addictive. So imagine something like that. But learning is not something, like you can just put the content out there. It needs to be carefully crafted, but we can definitely learn from these social media platforms and other technologies and things coming out. Algorithms are the future. And if we can, use that to kind of personalize, nothing like it.
It's kind of funny when you are on X or Facebook or anything and you start to see weird stuff pop up. You got to sit back and say, what did I just look at? And why is it giving me this? It's like a mirror on yourself, like, ooh, I got to change what I'm looking at here.
Yeah. So that, I
But
mean,
I'm not sure from a learning perspective if we're at that level of personalization yet, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd love to get there. I think learning experience platforms are closer than, let's say, a learning management system to be able to do things like these personalized learning paths. I think that that's one of the things that you have to make sure that you're looking into and finding out what is that roadmap for your provider look like? Do you have any influence in their tech roadmap and what's coming down the path? Because I think these all sound great, but it's not like there's an out of the box feature that you can turn on that says, okay, personalize the learning paths for my learners.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, it requires that data to be collected from the learner. I mean, otherwise we are completely lost. We're just kind of shooting in the dark. Sorry, Bob, you're saying something.
No, I was just going to say that it's important that when we look at this, that we understand we're not just with AI and actually anything we do, we're not just trying to um, restructure how it is that people consume information. And so that's kind of where AI is right now, which is creating new wow factor in what it is that we're delivering, right? The real challenge for AI is how do we take advantage of the neuroplasticity in the brain and we can actually make them think better.
Hmm.
So how do we
Critical
get
thinking.
there by using AI as compared to using traditional methods don't always get there. We just change the interface. We're using more auditory, more kinesthetic, more visual, whatever it is we're going to do. But how do we actually make them think differently? That's the key to all of L&D, really, is getting them to think differently, reconnect the dots in a different way that they hadn't before. And how do we use AI to do that? That's the real
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. In
And I think
fact,
it's becoming easier and easier, right? I mean, you
yeah.
literally could go to a chat GPT and say, hey, help me role play for this interview or help me, practice X, right? And I think that those are fantastic. But but we're not doing that in a structured way necessarily, right? Or we're not necessarily teaching individuals about prompt engineering or how to actually conversate. And that's a really, really cool thing with AI and what we're able to do with it. This is the first time in history where we don't need to speak the computer's language, right? We can speak our language and the computer understands us, which really opens it up to so many more people in its use. And you can have folks like myself that can try to start programming, even though I don't know any code.
Yeah, yeah. It's really funny because when Bob was saying about that the whole neuroplasticity of the mind, as in how we can use AI to kind of learn a little more ourselves. I noticed that some of these new models like Perplexity and the recent one, DeepSeek, I think from China, these have brought in the reasoning models, right? So I think all of them have a reasoning option now where you can actually see it reason through its own, prompt that we give and the final output. Going through that itself is kind of an educational experience. We're like saying, wow, okay, it's thinking in this way. I mean, I can think in this way. So there you go. I mean, that's a way in which we are kind of improving our own critical thinking.
And if I think about the folks that are listening in on this, where that becomes valuable is before, if you were tackling something new, especially at an organization, you might have to reach out to a vendor and get a consultant and try to use their templates or their processes and so forth. And now you can do pulse checks, you can do audits on your progress. I started 40 and Co. Last May, and 6 months in, I was going for a walk and I turned on ChatGPT's voice feature, and I had a great conversation. And I said, "Help me do an analysis or an audit of my first 6 months." And did a great job from a product perspective, customer acquisition, budgeting, all these things that I typically would have had to go into a consultant for. Now, is it to the same degree or that consultant may have brought? Absolutely not, right? But for an informal audit during a walk, it was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. You couldn't do that sometime back, right? And you had to call in a consultant to get something like that done.
Yeah, and really not that long ago.
The other thing to remember about this is that we tend to look at AI as something that can do things for us. Now, one of the biggest things that's coming up on the horizon, especially in 2025 and moving forward, are going to be AI agents, where they do things for us. The problem that we run into is that human beings still need to put in the sweat equity in order to learn, right? And if all we do is we let the agents do for us what it is that we would normally do, we don't learn. And so we don't understand why things happen the way that they do. The how and the what, we kind of let AI take that over, and we're passing right over the why. So it's important when it comes to things like AI to introduce agents when they come up in at the appropriate time. I'll give you an example. You can have an agent in the sales world. You can have an agent handle everything from top to bottom or you can have it do the top of the sales funnel, where it finds the people, it has the initial conversation with them, and it figures everything out from the top of the funnel. But the issue is that a new person coming in trying to learn how to sell doesn't understand why it's doing that. And so it can decimate the learning environment also if you use it in the wrong way. You don't want to introduce agents that will do the work for them, but you can use AI to say, there's 3 different questions you can ask. Pick the right one to ask. And then so that way you're guiding the person as they're going about their job, as compared to doing the job for them. So just be careful of that when you're using AI. They have to learn.
It's a huge change.
Yeah.
You said that they could decimate the learning environment, and I really love that, because I think that the learning environment does need to be decimated. I think we need to take learning and we need to move it into the flow of work. One of the big challenges that I've seen in all the organizations that I've been at is that it's very difficult to find time for learning, because learning is seen as a separate activity. You have to leave work to go learn, right? And AI is now going to make it where I'm going to be able to learn while I'm working. You had mentioned watches, Viṣak, but also things like Meta glasses. So we're going to be able to have auditory input, output, visual input, outputs, and that's when we can start to bring learning into when it matters. And then, as far as applicability or relevance, that's going to really help with the retention, because they're learning it when they need it. Imagine having a customer interaction and the AI was listening in, and then afterwards said, "Hey, great job, Bob, but you had an opportunity here to also talk about XYZ," right? That's when the learning really becomes impactful, I think.
True. In the flow of work. That's correct. It's important because, like you mentioned, right, Bob, agents are going to be there. We are going to go ahead and ask it to do many things, and it'll keep doing it. If we don't have the required background, like for example, if I don't have the required background in coding and I just keep iterating on this and it's going to create something and I have no idea whether it's going to be efficient, until and unless I get somebody, a human who has the coding experience, to look into it and say, okay, this is not exactly the way it should be done. So we are not there yet. I mean, we can't entirely trust these agents. And it's important because from a development perspective, yes, these agents and the AI tools are helping us. We can create the content in a very fast way. They are smart. They are, quite relevant to whatever we are asking it to create. And the models are getting better and better day by day. So we are seeing that, the quality and the output is increasing like tremendously. So one thing that we need to understand is, it's not going to go anywhere. We have to use these tools. We have to kind of make sure that we keep using it. But while that's happening, we also need to kind of keep that human thing in mind where, make sure that we keep learning, we don't keep completely being dependent on agents and such. And also think about new ways in which we can converse and work with these agents. It's the old ways, as Charlie mentioned, right? Like where we might use a e-learning or a PPT or something is going to change. It's going to be, we are going to be talking to an agent over an app on a phone, and we're going to be asking it like, hey, give me a synopsis of something or a summary of something, and it's going to be there. So it's important that as training professionals, learning designers, we understand that these interfaces are coming up, and we be prepared and integrate them into our designs and see if it really works for our learners. And that being said, I think we keep going back to learning analytics because it is important. If we don't have the right data, we are not going to understand the learner. We're just going to keep creating the same stuff that we've been creating. So where does it end? It's important that we collect data. I think we are in a flux. Things are gonna happen soon. We are not completely there yet, but there are some things that we can do during this time. We at Apposite, we have been doing some projects for some of our clients, and some of the things that we have been doing. Let me just go to, sorry. Skip ahead. Yeah, I just wanted to give some examples. For example, when it comes to not hyper personalization, but what we can do right now when it comes to personalization is in our LMSs that we have, there are capabilities by which we can create journeys, learning journeys or learning pathways with modular content and kind of test the learners on a regular basis, give them very relevant content. And as instructional designers or training designers, it's our responsibility to create content that is very relevant for learners. So it's not that difficult. I mean, we don't really need AI, but we can use AI to kind of make sure that the pathways are there, how the weightages are defined, how the questions are presented to them, and then collect the data. These platforms can collect the data and modify the learning pathways accordingly. So like I think Charlie, you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, why would I want to learn something that I already know about? So if the platform can figure that out somehow, that I already know this content, and just allow me to skip ahead and move on to the stuff that I don't know about, I think that's definitely possible now. And that's something that we are doing over here. We're working on some platforms that way. And we don't need to wait till agents and other conversational interfaces come. This is something that we can do right now. Similarly, I think for intelligent content creation, so this is something that we were looking at. It's very interesting. There's a tool called HeyGen, which creates video avatars. So say I or Bob or Charlie, if we have like a 2-minute video of you, and I get to create an entire avatar, and I train that avatar on all the content that's available. Say Bob is like sitting on a wealth of content from sales enablement and various other domains. So if I get access to that and I get an access to Bob's avatar, I can create a model like this, and you can sit and ask questions. You can talk to that model and you can get answers, responses. But I know that that's not like how you're gonna talk directly to Bob. That requires that's a different experience. But these are things that are available. Bob, I'd like to hear
Possibly
your
go wrong.
thoughts.
The last thing I want is somebody using my face and not using my words. So if somebody can take my face and put it into something and say something that's completely opposite of what I actually believe or think, I think it's called a deep fake. Is that what they're called now these days?
That's what it's
And
called.
so that's kind of yeah.
That's actually a good point, because I think that we're not being trained to let folks know that this was co-authored with AI, right? And I think that there needs to be some sort of disclaimer whenever it's used, even if it's just slightly. And I'm not sure how to integrate that, because you don't want to detract from it, but that you do want to make sure that you're giving transparency in how it was created.
These are the ethical considerations that we'll have to work with, right? To make sure that, data is protected and, we are not misusing anybody's identity information, things like that. Yeah. So,
but it's going to take tools like this to allow for the level of personalization that we're talking about, though, right? Because
yeah.
If we want to give Bob a bespoke experience based on what he knows, right, and then we're filling in the gaps, well, we're going to need to be able to generate content on the fly to be able to do that.
True.
So that's the really exciting part, is just the massive amount of content that we'll need to be able to generate to allow for the level of personalization that we're talking about here.
True. Same thing
Now,
like that. Like, yeah.
I was going to say what's great about AI though is that it can analyze things for us that we are incapable of doing. You've heard of the butterfly effect. You change this one little thing down here, an event like a butterfly flaps its wings and becomes a hurricane somewhere else in the world, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what data mining is, and looking for causal analytics by using AI. What is it that will really cause a change in the behavior? Remember that what we're in is the behavioral change business. That's what we do. It's easy to get a computer to change what it does, but how do you change a human being? That's entirely different.
Yeah.
So it's just important that we use the analytics, as you were talking about, to really dig deep into, if I change this one little thing, if I teach them this one thing, will it manifest itself into some sort of a larger behavioral shift? And what's interesting about this is that if you're from a very small organization, and suppose you're in an SMB that has 20 people, it's not like you have a huge data pool to work with. So how do you do that? Now we're coming down to, are you going to just benchmark off those, baseline off of 20 people, or can you actually benchmark into a larger data set? And that's where we need to start taking a look at, benchmarking into your industry, into what it is that you're doing in order to improve what you're doing with your small company. From a large company like Dell or Verizon or something like that, you have thousands of people to draw from, and your baseline is probably going to be pretty close to the benchmark. But if you don't have a large enough company, you have to benchmark and use data from other companies in order to find out what it is going to create that behavioral shift.
And I think that data, what you said, data is very important, right? So even for a small company, sometimes using an AI model to kind of simulate certain personas which are not available right now, can make sure that, it thinks in that way. We feed it the data and say, okay, give us some insights from this perspective of this persona. That is something that's possible. So I think these are ways in which we can use AI to collect that data as well, right? Rather than just generate content. So we
By the
have,
way, I don't know if it was listed or not, but we have a chat in the QA over here on the side. So the folks that are listening right now, chime in, please. We'd love to hear from you.
yes. So we had some things around. We were talking about how these AI tools and various technologies, how are they going to change the way we are looking at design development. I've spoken about this from an L&D perspective, but this applies across the board, right? Across a lot of departments and such, where the fear that would AI be replacing me, or the skills and such, but it's not really replacement. We were talking about this from the beginning, right? I mean, it's more of looking at it as an augmentation of your skills. We use AI agents, we use the various integrations of AI in our apps and other tools and such to kind of improve our own innate skills, right? I mean, that's what you were talking about, right, Bob? I mean, in terms of how we use AI to assist ourselves.
Right.
So it's It's
Well,
important.
sorry, just real quick on this slide here. You had mentioned that this applies to kind of beyond just the learning design, and I agree, and I think that that's something that a company, regardless of size, needs to think about as a whole, right? So every department should be asking themselves these questions, and then these departments need to talk to each other and compare how it's going to be changing things for them. So I think that there needs to be committees put together. You need to have interdepartmental conversations, and then have the policies created so that you can educate your workforce on how to use it. Employees are using it already, anyways,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so now it's okay. Well, how do we make sure that they're using it in a
Well,
way that's consistent for the organization, and also respects the intellectual property that company might have as well.
that's a huge danger. I mean, I guess that ethical considerations come in over there, where employees are already using it, and some organizations are still kind of not entirely there. So how do they protect data? How do they make sure that they're compliant in their business operations? Yeah,
And I would say
so
most organizations don't have a policy,
yeah,
right?
I would agree with that.
It's kind of a wild west, right? And we're trying to see what sticks, what works, what doesn't, and folks are experimenting with it at different levels.
Yeah. So on the augmentation and replacement thing, there's always a lot of scare that goes on that AI is going to replace me. Why would a company need me as an L&D professional when AI is here and it can create what took me 20 hours of work? It can do it in 5 minutes. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, the fact is that AI still needs the human mind to do
Definitely.
something that is relevant and impactful to people. It can create things that are so out in left field that why in the world would I want anybody to learn that? It's not specific to what it is that they need to learn right now. So I would not be afraid of being replaced by AI and use it as a tool. It would probably stabilize the amount of people that you have. You might not have to outsource as much
Yeah.
to different companies now. You can probably do a lot more in-house as compared to outsourcing it. But so it'll change the business atmosphere of L&D quite a bit. The other thing to remember here is that the augmentation part. Um, AI does not suddenly make somebody creative. You have to be creative coming into the game, and then AI will go ahead and make you more creative. But the best example I can give is pen and paper, or paint and a palette have been around for an
Many.
eons, right?
Yeah.
But how many Michelangelos and Picassos have come along?
Yeah.
Well, everybody can be a Michelangelo or a Picasso because everybody has access to the tools, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. Okay, there has to be something inside of you, first of all, that AI can augment. It's not going to turn you into a different person. So don't look at AI to do that. The fallacy, the speaker's argument that they use is that, well, now you're going to be much more creative. It doesn't work that way. You either have a creative spark in you or you don't.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that will use AI and say, "Oh, look what I created." I'm like, "Well, all you did was really just kind of manipulate what was already there. You didn't really create." So that's something else on AI to keep in mind.
Yeah, true, absolutely. In certain cases, there are certain latent skills and spark, as you mentioned, might be hidden, and maybe those tools are not really there. But now you do see a lot of people who are coming in and creating content quite quickly, and it's probably because they are able to use these tools, well. They're able to uncover that latent skill. So we have to look at that way. But yeah, you're right. The danger of always being dependent on the tools and kind of forgetting that actual innate human skill that we have, that's there. And I believe that's where a framework is very important, whereas organizations or teams can kind of understand, right? uh, Charlie mentioned you need to have those interdepartmental conversations, and those right approaches to dealing with, collecting the right data and such, that has to be put down into a framework, and we work through that. We will be talking about that a little later, but I think a framework is very important for us to understand this landscape that we are currently in.
Well,
Skill
especially
shift.
because there's a current AI landscape, and then there's a future AI landscape that's going to be here really, really quickly, right? And
Yeah.
so when we think about like agentic AI and what that's able to do, we're going from using kind of AI as internet on steroids to something else right now, and we're still trying to figure out what that something else is going to look like.
Yeah. And yeah, so apart from having a framework, I think we also need to kind of understand these skill shifts also, because we are using tools where we are required to prompt them, we are required to talk to the agents, converse, and see, how we can get them to better their work. So how are these these kind of competencies going to be defined for these roles? And that's something that we'll have to look at, right? How would it change in the future? Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
Charlie, I'm going to be talking to
Well,
these agents.
well, I honestly think that piece gets very, very exciting because that's when we can do that hyper personalization, right? Typically when we design instruction, it's objective based, and there's an overarching objective and so forth. And now we're going to be taking it beyond the objective and also adding skills that we're trying to incorporate them, or that we're trying to incorporate. And when an organization has their business priorities or their business goals, and they identify the skills that are required to accomplish those, and then a department has their goals and priorities, and they understand the skills that are required, and we see how they all connect with each other, then we're able to really put together some impactful programs.
True, true. And for instructional designers to use these tools during those processes, right? I mean, as a reasoning agent, or as probably a mirror where you can kind of put in your thoughts and see, I mean, does it really work or not? So those, how do you work with those agents, or how do you work with those tools? That's good.
And those agents are going to be able to create these scenarios that allow them to practically apply the information that they're learning, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I actually wanted to show you some insights into specifically at Apposite, when since the last 2 years, our team has been using these tools quite extensively. And I wanted to point out some of these efficiencies that we are seeing, with respect to, for example, at the level of analysis and design, when somebody is kind of getting into understanding the content. They use some of these tools quite well, and those reasoning agents really come in handy. And we are using Copilot because we are in the Microsoft ecosystem. We are using, Copilot, but it really helps out when we are seeing that, just not that much time taken for generating a minutes of meeting, or probably generating the insights from a particular meeting, and putting together some of those documents. So these kind of things really bring up the savings in a project, because we are seeing that the effort spent is like very less. So it's very interesting. Things like
I think
tool.
I think, sorry, just real quick. I think this slide is super powerful. And, when we were reviewing it before, what I had mentioned was as a client of Apposite in the past, that's one of the things that I would take a look at is the effort hours it took to create, or the development hours it took to create, learning. And being able to come to me and say, hey, Charlie, we've gotten this much more efficient, I can put a dollar value to that, right? And at the end of the day, these businesses, we're going to spend, or we're going to invest our money where we're going to get a return on it, right? And when you can show the impact that it can have like this, I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind here, efficiency is mainly about doing something in a shorter amount of time, right? So if you suddenly save yourself 80% of the effort that it used to take, you have to ask yourself, what am I going to do with that spare 80% of time?
I think
Okay,
that
That's where
because
goes.
you
there's
get
one.
creative. That's where
That's
you're
where you
allowed
get
to
creative.
think.
That's
That's
right.
where exactly
That's right.
right. All
That's
the
right. So
rote stuff, all the basic stuff. Let's let AI do that so that we can get creative, right? And that's the exciting part.
I mean, if a client comes up to me and says that, okay, I need two options for, this particular solution, and if I have 80% of my time saved on this, I'd be happy to put in another option, another two more options, probably do more analysis on whether those options will work. So they are really good cost benefits that we can get by using these tools. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's not let's throw on more work because we've got AI helping us, with the more basic stuff. It's let's now reshape what we're using that extra time for.
yeah,
bingo.
create better learning experiences. Yeah. I think from all that we have heard so far, right, with respect to how things have been changing and whether, we are on the right path. And we also emphasized on how a framework is very much important for us to navigate this landscape and make sure we are going in the right way. So here is something that we put together, and these are just captured the high level steps, but at each stage, there are some things that we can do to make sure that we're going in the right way. Starts with assessment, starts with how we are currently, our L&D teams or any team for that matter. How do we kind of assess where we are at? What are our current skill sets? How many people within our teams are actually using some of these tools and such? So all that information is very important. And while we are assessing the system, things are moving very fast. So it's important that we move fast and create some of these, pilot programs and things, basically use the tools and see how they work, understand how they can augment our skills and our, current workflows and such. So we start small and then internally build literacy and, the awareness towards these are the tools that are available for you to kind of, experiment, see if they work. Tools are coming out like every day there are something new coming out, so it's important that we stay aware of them, make sure that we use them in the right way, and slowly kind of build it into our company policy, build in those change management policies so that we make it a sustainable integration. Use AI in wherever possible, use it smartly, use it efficiently, and reap the benefits. So I think this kind of a structured approach is very important. What do you think, Charlie? I mean, do you think this would work?
Yeah, and I definitely think these are the steps that a department needs to take. But legal needs to also get involved and give that overall guidance on what can and can't be done. I think something like this is absolutely fantastic, and you need to do it. But there's a one step above this that I also think needs to be there.
Yeah, that overall vision, right, of what is it that we are trying to do over here. That's
Or
important.
even just what can I put into the platform? Can I upload this document that I created? Most likely, no, you shouldn't.
Mm,
So
mm,
how do you protect the innocent? How do you make sure that you're not giving out the information that you're not supposed to? And
mm,
so I think that as far as this implementation roadmap, you need to have each department do this, but you also need to understand the do's and don'ts. And I think a lot of us are still trying to figure that out. A lot of companies are still trying to figure out what that should be, right? And so I go back to, well, folks are using it anyways, right? And Bob, I'm just going to steal this from you, but you had mentioned that AI is on the cusp of going mainstream, right? Um, absolutely, absolutely. Everyone is going to start
that is going to be
using it.
using it. Yeah,
Yeah, the
that's
the
true.
important thing about AI in the larger scheme of a company is being able to cut through the silos that human beings create. So I'll give you a for example in customer service. Okay. Uh, if you're going in customer service, one of the things we have to get to is customer success, so that we can actually help the customer understand why it is that they bought whatever it is they bought from us in the first place, and can we help them do that? The problem is that usually customer service has no idea what it is that sales talk to the customer about, and they have no idea what the goal is. So by using AI, it can go out and find those nuggets of information from different parts of the company,
Yeah.
from product and what the roadmap looked like, from sales and the conversations that they had. And then when it comes time for customer service, for example, to talk to the customer, they can start making the correct suggestions. It says, you bought this for this reason. And so what can we do to actually maybe find another reason for you to actually continue using it, or even amplify and augment what it is you're doing with it? That's the kind of thing that AI can really help with internally in a company. And
Yeah.
from the L&D perspective, that's something that we have to teach everyone to do, which is to use AI in a way that it breaks down silos, gets information from the parts that we don't normally look at, and build it into a different picture that we can use to help our customers.
Absolutely, it's spot on, Bob. I mean, we really need to have a clear idea of how it works out within different parts of the company, parts of the team, so that we can have a cohesive way of adopting AI, making sure it works for us. This is actually there's something that we came across recently, and this is Amit Vincent, one of our co-founders of Apposite. He has a weekly, a news burst that goes out, and one of that is about very interesting research that we did, and we figured out that there is a short audit that companies can do and kind of understand where they are at in terms of your overall landscape and how you need to kind of move forward. Are you really ready in terms of taking the jump into AI? So short questions, very insightful questions that are supposed to drive conversations around in the organization and give them an insight. And surprisingly, what happened is one of the organizations did this, and they realized that they spend a large money on training AI and all of that, and then actually only about 6% of the employees really had the awareness and this one to kind of go ahead with it. So there was a huge sink that they kind of went in. So it's very important that we make sure that we understand where we are putting our money, where we are putting in our effort, and then kind of making sure we have a structured approach through this. I realize that we are a little more than time, but I think I'll just quickly wrap this up. It's important. So I just want to say that the audit is very important for all organizations and your L&D teams and such. So as next steps, what I would suggest is, yes, there are key takeaways. We have emphasized on this quite a lot, that we are in a state of change. We are seeing a lot of new things coming in that are affecting the way we work, impacting it, bringing in a lot of positives and negatives. But immediately, as in what we can do is to assess what our current state is. That applies to both individuals and organizations. Are we really taking advantage of the tools out there? Are we really seeing how we can adapt to the current changes and such? And maybe try out some stuff out there, so a pilot program. And that's the best way to learn these tools. Get out there, start using the tools, and you will see that you just immediately take to it. So I guess, as Bob was mentioning earlier, it's very important that I think we're on the cusp of a great movement where everybody's kind of going to be getting into it, just like how mobile phones happen. So it's important. Let's start learning more and being aware of what AI can do. Start looking into case studies and various guides that are currently out there, how companies are using it. Use an educated decision on whether you would want to go about it, but at least stay aware. And that's one way we can kind of navigate through this whole change. I think, yeah, that's where we are at. We really thank you so much for your time. I believe we have some questions here. Let's just take a quick look at the questions, see if there's something we can answer.
You know, I'm surprised we're only 5 minutes over. So I think we did a pretty good job with that. I'm not sure if Jeremy's still on, but he had written that the resurrection of the role of the instructional technologist. I absolutely love that because that's the role that I've always put myself in, right? You know, that guy that you always go to that, you know, kind of just gets excited about this type of stuff. So anything that we can do to improve teaching and learning, harnessing technology to do so, I just think it's great. It's going to benefit the learner at the end of the day.
Definitely. And I think this is not the end. We are going to have a lot more conversations like this and keep the ball rolling in terms of, you know, how we understand this technology, how we adapt to it. Whatever data we get, we are going to put it out there. We're going to make sure that we share it with everybody, and let's create a community. Let's be interested, be curious, and let's share ideas and see how we can navigate this together. I think that's what I'd like to end this webinar with. Thank you so much, guys. This has been an amazing experience. Thank you so much for this.
Great.
For having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.